There's more here.
In part one of this deep dive into Mad Max knockoffs, cash-ins and fake-outs, we poked around the early Italian movies.
Why?
Addressed Hollywood's interest in Mad Max scenes.
You could be the hooker.
And toured a variety of international oddities that led us to the incomparable Death Run.
Go on, kiss it, you bitch!
But that was only part of the Maxploitation story, and to continue it, we're going to double back to 1983 and head over to the Philippines, where exploitationeer Cirio Santiago had built one of the biggest B-movie empires in Southeast Asia.
Amazing.
Think how much more amazing it'll be when you have your clothes off.
Yeah.
Santiago spent most of the 70s turning the money and actors Roger Corman kept sending him into women in prison movies. But towards the end of the decade, both men seemed to notice the Filipino landscape was good not only for abusing Pam Grier, but also killing Viet Cong, concealing monsters, and of course hosting hyperbolic post-apocalypses.
Is this the end of all that is left? Or a legend about to begin?
Get ready. Let's go!
Their odds are 1,000,000 to 1. Strikers, the one. Striker.
Striker, 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 striker!
Where did you get the water?
In Striker, everyone's looking for water, especially cult leader Immortan No, whose own small well's running dry, which is what leads him to kidnap rebel leader Julian Assange and bury him in the desert.
Water. Water? Yeah.
But he's just looking for water too. The only one who knows where it is Andrea Savio's Della, who, like Furiosa, has been displaced from a hidden oasis and benefits from a near-mute tough guy anti-hero for a mentor. This is his big dialogue scene.
Don't you ever feel anything inside? I mean, something that you just feel like saying to get it out of your system.
Yeah, I used to.
Despite everything, Santiago's first stab at Maxploitation's pretty good. I do like the cars and it really looks the part. Plus there are Jawas for some reason, and a notable stunt gone wrong. This extra wasn't meant to fall from the Jeep, but when he did, you can bet they put it in the trailer.
Water is life, and when a drop is worth fighting for, Striker knows a truckload is worth dying for.
1985's Wheels of Fire stars more interesting little-known American Gary Watkins, and his fake Max Trace has the advantage of some kind of unidentified time-warping anti-gravity technology. Not to mention a highly capable sidekick-cum-love interest in the form of Wrath of Khan's Laura Banks, but he's caused no end of trouble by his idiot sister Ali and her scumbag boyfriend Bo.
You want the girl, you take the girl!
You f***ing bastard!
Shut up, woman.
Andy Sedaris fans might recognise Ali actor Linda Weissmeyer as the marvellously named June Knockers in Malibu Express.
What do you think, Cody?
The dynamite.
I meant the driving.
Both of them.
It's fair to say Santiago's movies are rudimentary compared to those of his more stylish and imaginative Italian counterparts. They're also startlingly sleazy at times, with Ali spending most of the movie half naked, either chained to something or being groped by extras. But the director understood better than most that Maxploitation begs for a dusting of indefinable oddness, and that it demands the destruction of top-drawer apoca cars and a feral brutality that most filmmakers blanched at.
Burn his eyes out! Nah, let's just peel his skin off. I always like it when we peel his skin off. We haven't done that for a while.
Santiago's next slice of Maxploitation has come up before on Borrowing Blockbusters because its time travel to save the world plot makes it a Terminator ripoff too. The opening's pure Maxploitation, and there's a dose of Bruceploitation before the last act delivers an Amazon movie. So best to leave it alone and go on to the film Santiago made at the same time.
Out of the wasteland comes a rebel. A rebel with a nuclear arsenal he can hold in his hand. Equalizer 2000.
Equalizer 2000's cast, cars, and even its titular Ultra Gun were all recycled from Future Hunters with minimal changes, but they're put to more Max-like use because the movie's far more dedicated to the cause. That said, there are some pretty diverse warring parties. Things kick off with a skirmish between the Gestapo and the IRA, which is ultimately joined by Robert Patrick's Confederacy, which leads the SAS to try and form an alliance with the Filipino branch of the Navajo Nation.
If they push us, believe me, Firewall, they'll come and push you too.
We are always ready.
We're not afraid of winter.
And it doesn't stop there.
No, it's the mountain people.
I thought they were the rebels. Combinations of these groups regularly meet up to fight in quarries, but their ultimate goal is ownership of the Equalizer. This world doesn't appear to be short of guns, but apparently having several of them glued together is much better, and everyone's somehow aware that the Equalizer tips the balance of power. As a result, it's treated like the One Ring and allows Richard Norton to scatter whole armies. In The Sisterhood, which was Santiago's next offering, the women of the future are brutally subjugated by men, unlike in other genre movies. There is one male who isn't so bad, but we only know this because he briefly shows a vague sense of remorse after killing a child.
And Warlord has us killing children.
Pretty good wages. Let's get the hell out of here.
All right, I see it. Dynamite Willies.
But he's got a pub to get to, so it doesn't last long. I'd like to say the Sisterhood's unusual angle makes it more interesting, but it doesn't, even when a militant ghost shows up to save everyone.
Trust in me, and I will deliver you from all this. You are free.
Thrilling. Dune Warriors came next, and experience tells us that by this point in the genre's cycle, Corman's likely to have checked out and begun recycling footage.
Absolutely.
So it comes as no surprise when David Carradine wanders into the movie dressed as his character from The Warrior and the Sorceress. This is presumably to enable Santiago to recycle footage of him from Corman's earlier film.
Well, I don't doubt that.
But unlike in Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2, which uses the same trick and the same costume, I can't find any reused footage of Carradine in Dune Warriors.
Ordinarily, I'd be real happy to accommodate you.
Speaking of Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2, we'll get some more extreme Corman recycling later, but either I missed it or here they only reused costumes and props. It's most discombobulating, so thank goodness Carradine's reassuringly erratic. Someone who worked with him several times in the 80s once told me you could tell when he was stoned rather than drunk because he'd improvise all sorts of distracting physical business during takes.
I want to find warriors that will defend us against William.
A lot of the warriors go to Freetown. They're looking for service. I wanted to hire somebody, that's where I'd go.
You understand me? I am stoned. I am stoned.
With these movies being so similar, their stars can make a big difference. Richard Norton brings a lot to Equalizer 2000, and Dune Warriors benefits not just from Carradine, but Rick Hill.
I may be a scoundrel, but I ain't never turned my back on a friend.
And somehow he pulls off the same trick he does in Deathstalker, by being likeable despite the fact he's playing someone unlikable.
You know, there's two things that smell like fish. One of them's fish.
Diminishing returns for Corman and Santiago's Manilla Maxs movies meant 1992's Raiders of the Sun was effectively the last, and it was time. Richard Norton stars again, and it transpires that this is the movie marking Corman's loss of interest in the genre, because there's a lot of recycled footage. At one point, I'm fairly sure we see Equalizer 2000 attacking wheels of fire, but it's hard to be sure because of a technique employed by Santiago.
Fire!
Cleverly, he'd shoot valuable material with multiple cameras from very slightly different angles, so he could reuse the shot without it being so obvious he was reusing the shot, because he kind of wasn't. If you look at the buildings in the background, it's obvious there were two cameras positioned a few feet away from each other. Corman felt it was important to contribute something new though, because he instructed Santiago to include a blunder dome.
It ain't easy being the boss, because I gotta think of everything.
In part 1, I mentioned that the Road Warrior and true Maxploitation works more like the traditional Western than the traditional post-apocalypse movie. The unforgiving environment of the Old West, with its frontier justice and murky morality, is much like the worlds of Maxploitation. So it was probably inevitable that exploitationeers would look to Hollywood's once favourite genre for adaptable templates, and they found many.
Drama began when a mysterious stranger rode in from out of nowhere.
to play a decisive role in the lives of rugged pioneers.
George Stevens' Shane became perhaps the most blatantly imitated Ota when it was remade as Steel Dawn, with Patrick Swayze in the Alan Ladd role of a laconic, wandering gunfighter who defends a struggling homestead from an aggressive cattle baron.
No one is better than me. You talk too much.
Ironically, it's the perceived need to play out all the classic shtick that creates problems. This is a world in which people fight to the death over a thimble of water, but Western tropes demand there also be enough to bathe in, and to leave buckets lying around ready to be thrown over Brian James. On the bright side, I guess the score from Mad Max maestro Brian May is decent, and the Namibian desert landscapes are impressive. John Ford's Stagecoach got a post-apocalyptic reimagining too, with the thoroughly enjoyable but unremarkable Neon City, which has Michael Ironside in the John Wayne role alongside a group of misfit travellers. Most have a secret to hide that's teased out over the course of a perilous journey beset by poisonous gas clouds, lethal solar flares and dubious pet owners.
Nice dogs. Tastes good too.
You're under arrest.
I slipped the surly bonds of earth, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
Crazy bastard. He thought the wind would save him.
Slipstream was written as a Max-alike, but got pushed into sci-fi western territory when Tron's Steven Lisberger came on board to direct. Unfortunately, it flopped so badly it bankrupted Star Wars producer Gary Kurtz, and that's despite the presence of Bill Paxton and Mark Hamill.
It's over!
I haven't seen it since childhood because Mr. Hamill's forced to play a villain.
But how do we know? This is all you need to know.
1 year earlier, Columbia gave Maxploitation a spin on TV, with largely forgotten pilot Badlands 2005, which sought to update the Western rather than just recycle it. It's only 48 minutes long, but it packs in a lot of talking points, starting with the fact it's directed by but not the George Miller, which makes me wonder if he was hired by accident. Features Mad Max's Hugh Keys-Byrne playing himself, and stars Miguel Ferrer, who right on the heels of his appearance in RoboCop is playing a robot cop.
You know, if I were a human, you'd take a CPR class, right? Am I right? Why can't you take a class? One lousy class in cyborg reanimation. Ugh. You always do this to me. That hurt.
Android Rex is partner to human, technically, Garson Macbeth, who's played horribly by Buckaroo Banzai's Lewis Smith, and together they patrol the New West under the unlikely supervision of Marshal Sharon Stone.
What?
Who ensures all three main characters are desperately miscast.
You've been through 6 cyborgs and 3 patrol systems in the last year and a half. They're the ones that are supposed to be indestructible.
You care.
The script's rubbish, the budget's stretched, and the action's all vanilla TV style. But the Apoco cars are among the best the genre had to offer at the time, which is a big surprise. Our heroes cruise around in this wildly impractical car that can turn into a pair of even more wildly impractical trikes. Steel Frontier might be the most Max-like of these things due to it offering the same selection of characters, its style incorporating embarrassing attempts at speed ramping, and the addition of plenty of vehicular mayhem. I'm going to forgive the visible safety cable because it doesn't appear to have done anything to keep the stuntman away from the massive explosion.
They my sister, and they left me for dead.
In 1989, egosploitation enthusiast David Heavener offered up his take on the post-apocalyptic Western, and naturally it stars himself as a former preacher and former gunslinger who's forced to take up arms against cattle-rustling varmints. And I'm afraid I have little to say about it because I spent the whole movie obsessing over how inappropriate the permanently looped soundtrack is.
As I recovered from my wounds, the killing and the continued.
I'm not sure this music really communicates the right vibe for that scene, but it doesn't for any of the others either, and it plays almost constantly, scoring everything from fistfights to romantic interludes and dinner breaks, which got me wondering if there's anything music like this would fit. My thoughts went immediately to a bear in a funny hat driving a tiny car, but that's not quite right either. tried all kinds of things before landing on something that almost fits. 2, 3, 4, and...
I also cook.
I've put this off as long as I can.
I remember when I was a little girl, when there were no dark nights. Fountains of light everywhere. And we skated for fun. Now, nights are black as ebon. And thou either skate or die.
In 1986, Donald G. Jackson's Rollerblade introduced us to a post-apocalyptic Los Angeles in which walking has been outlawed and skates made mandatory at all times, even for children.
Remember, the longer thou skate, the less thou fall. Now thou learneth.
Most of the population, which is composed entirely of punks, cops and kung fu skate nuns, are generally okay with the rule, but the nuns do have a problem with the cops, who keep hassling them when they just want to be free to skate.
Your weapon. Let me have it.
Yes, sir, Deputy. Here it is.
Ah, you're a spunky one.
Writer-director Jackson has said Mad Max wasn't an influence, and I can believe it. In fact, I can believe he wasn't influenced by anything of earthly origin. But people have been connecting these two series for as long as I can remember, and Rollerblade's such a profoundly trippy experience it was always going to feature.
Yea, verily. No, please. Forgive us our trespassing. Let us go, man. I'll confess a secret. Speak forth, but if thou lie, we will find thee.
Despite an almost complete lack of coherence, Rollerblade proved a hit, with many crediting the savvy marketing of distributor Roger Corman, and sequel Rollerblade Warriors followed, delivering more of the same perfectly natural blend of fundamentalist religion and apocalyptic roller skating.
I give thanks for your gift that enables me to denounce the evil which abides after the apocalypse. I pray that I may become a mighty warrior in the service of the cosmic order of Rollerblade.
The most notorious installment in the series, though, is the Rollerblade 7, and everything you've heard about it's true. The Rollerblade 7 was a collaboration between Jackson and the singularly creative Scott Shaw, and was made according to Shaw's so-called Zen philosophy of filmmaking, which ignores the idea of a script in favour of developing events organically, which is kind of what might lead us.
Discovering what the film is the journey of making the film.
It stars Shaw, who also produced, edited and co-wrote, as Hawk Goodman, a samurai who must journey through the Wheel Zone in order to rescue a kidnapped nun. Although as usual, that's just a device to allow our hero to encounter all kinds of weird and wonderful characters, many of whom are played by, if not B-movie royalty, then at least B-movie nobility.
There was a time when I loved the wheels more than the wenches.
William Smith is the kidnapper Pharaoh, who's confined to a wheelchair due to a skateboarding accident, and Hawk's adventures include doing magic mushrooms with Karen Black, sword-fighting Frank Stallone, and having absolutely nothing to do with Don Stroud, who I'm fairly sure everyone just found sitting in the desert when they turned up to shoot.
Like a piece of candy, little girl?
No.
The Rollerblade 7's been called the worst movie ever made by a number of esteemed critics. But there's no failure of intent. This is what it's meant to be like, and after the third time of watching, I finally get it. Somehow, every now and then, the stream of apparently random imagery does coalesce into something that engages. Then...
This is Officer Darrell Skate calling Skate Zone Central. Yeah. He has no skates, no wheels, no skateboard, and he's wearing white shoes in the wrong season.
The Rollerblade 7 proved a minor hit, so Jackson and Shaw recycled the formula for 1993's return of the Rollerblade 7, which once again sees Hawk heading into the Wheel Zone to do battle with William Smith's wicked Pharaoh. Only this time he's better prepared.
I have learned from my years of training with Donaldo, one does not need self-control or discipline
If you can't get enough of Scott Shaw's trench coat in a hot tub cool, you could always check out Legend of the Rollerblade 7, which is pretty much a re-edit of all the most salient scenes from the previous 2 movies.
Sister Sparrow has been abducted and taken into her worst nightmare.
You mean, my sister?
Yes, our sister. You must go now to rescue her.
Why?
We're not quite done with Jackson and Shaw yet, because the Rollerverse isn't their only post-apocalyptic franchise.
Eat lead, froggies!
Hell comes to Frogtown.
The improbable success of the original Rollerblade led Corman to offer Donald Jackson double its budget to make any movie he wanted. And what he wanted to make was Hell Comes to Frogtown, a tongue-in-cheek post-apocalyptic romp following lovable serial Sam Hell, one of the few remaining fertile men on Earth and a reluctant participant in a government repopulation program.
Well, maybe you ought to try making love to a complete stranger in the middle of a hostile mutant territory. See how you like it.
The problem with Corman's offer was that he wanted stars Roddy Piper and Sandahl Bergman in the leads, while Jackson wanted to do it fast and cheap with his 8mm camera and the cast from Rollerblade. New World wanting to go big-ish, but the director in the possibly unique position of having to compromise his vision due to overfunding from Roger Corman.
It's a miracle!
It's about Bergman's character enlisting the reluctant Sam to go undercover with her to rescue a harem owned by a mutant gangster frog with a thing for human women.
You have aroused the 3 snakes!
Only Max has to impregnate all of Immortan Joe's wives as well as help save them.
I guess what they say is true.
What's that?
A soldier's work is never done.
In sequel Frogtown 2, Sam's now a Texas Rocket Ranger, because the previous year Jackson had enjoyed The Rocketeer, and maybe he enjoyed Samurai Cop too, because Roddy Piper's out and Robert Z'Dar's in. Officially, that's because Piper was too busy with his wrestling career, but this is more like the kind of cast Jackson wanted from the start, with C-listers Lou Ferrigno, Brian James, and Don Stroud.
You got any water? I never touch the stuff. Want a beer? Sure.
It's a much cheaper, looser movie, but no less assured in execution. Jackson and Shaw know what they're going for, and I reckon they get it, whatever it is.
I wanted a world where everyone was green. It would solve so many problems.
Dr. Trixie T's formula has been stolen, and if we don't get it back immediately, the entire world will be turned into slimy toads.
In the third and thank God final Frogtown movie, Toad Warrior, the stakes are raised when a Brian James frog serum falls into the hands of, I think, Joe Estevez, although it might be John Carpenter. Either way, Agent Spangle's on the case.
Commander Armstrong, you've sent for me?
Yes, Agent Spangle. I want you to go into Frogtown and bring back that stolen serum to me.
I'm on it.
Don't worry, she's not alone, because Scott Shaw's finally joined the series and he's playing Sam Hell.
Ever heard of Dr. Trixie T? She was kidnapped a couple of weeks ago by Mr. Big.
Mr. Big, huh?
Yeah, Mr. Big.
I have absolutely nothing left to say about these ridiculous movies, so I'm checking out.
So hey, baby, you into toads?
No way.
These roller frog debacles highlight the task of deciding what belongs within a subgenre and what doesn't, and while Maxploitation's more clearly defined than most, its edges are still blurred. For example, there are 2 different movies widely known as Turkish Mad Max, but neither has anything to do with Australian Mad Max, at least not once they've stolen his costume. In fact, Inti Kamcher's a Commando clone, and not a good one. Beyond Maxploitation, the wider post-apocalypse genre comes in many flavours, which are discussed in Pulse Video's excellent book After the World Ends. But any conversation about a particular subgenre should involve movies on the fringes too, especially if they offer context, insight, or kung fu skate nuns, and regardless of whether they're unduly preoccupied with Roddy Piper's virility.
Must have been all that fiber I ate when I was a kid.
Continuing for a moment in this questionable vein of films that don't really count, Chain Reaction is part of the same cycle of Australian social satire fender-bender movies that includes the original Mad Max, and you could argue is bookended by Stone, which I talked about in the first video, and Dead End Drive-In, a more impressionistic but equally brilliant offering from Brian Trenchard Smith, about two teens who go to the drive-in and aren't allowed to leave.
But they must want to get out. You can't tell me they don't want to get out.
Yeah, but they know they can't, son, so don't worry about it. There's no future in it. You finish your beer, I'll buy you another one.
Among the more unusual post-apocalypses to be greenlit during the genre's mid-80s heyday was Albert Pune's Radioactive Dreams, with Michael Dudikoff and John Stockwell as best friends who grow up in a blast-from-the-past fallout shelter before emerging into a world of punks, drunks, and feral gangster children.
Where the f*** are those f***ing keys? I got lost in, man. Really? Let's f***ing waste her!
Most B-movie fans would say either Cyborg or Nemesis was Pune's best film, but they'd probably do it without mustering much enthusiasm for the subject. If there's one of his movies likely to cause a strong positive reaction though, it's Radioactive Dreams. Unfortunately, problems with music rights and ownership means it's never had a proper DVD release, let alone Blu-ray, but it's ripe for rediscovery with its impossible blend of hard-boiled 50s noir, 70s disco mutants, ultra-80s new wave styles, and the timeless George Kennedy somehow.
Hi, you squirt! Remember me?
Pune himself credits The Man Who Fell to Earth, The Long Goodbye, and Walkabout as his main influences, and I mention them in descending order of credibility. I can see external influence on some of Pune's other post-apocalypse movies, but not this one.
Out of the vehicle! Face before I blow your f***ing brains all over the f***ing car! Bitch, you ever slap me in the f***ing face again? You're a wasted piece of shit! You f***ing idiot, Chester! Kill a f***ing bitch! I'll f*** you hell never call me a f***ing idiot!
To Japan, where Fist of the North Star began life as a 245-issue manga series from artist Tetsuo Hara and writer Beronson. It was the latter who came up with the post-apocalyptic setting, having been inspired by The Road Warrior and being of the belief that martial arts movies shouldn't be set in the present. So Max's Broken Future became the backdrop for an epic saga of vengeance that was adapted into a 1984 anime TV series and a spectacularly gory movie that had parents up in arms.
Please, Ken, think of the children.
There's some great imagery, and I know it's considered a classic in some circles, but I've never been convinced. The characters are beyond thin, our hero's signature move is hilarious, the violence seems childish, and the English dub's like a parody.
Shin, at one time you were Ken's closest friend. He trusted and respected you. When you were chosen as Fist of the South Star, he was glad for you, glad for his friend's success. But you were never really his friend, were you?
But you can't judge a movie on a dub, and despite its problems, the anime is the most popular of the various feature-length adaptations. The same year saw an unofficial live-action take from Taiwan that bears little resemblance to its source material. Korea's legend of Fist of the North Star is more faithful to the story but not the world, and it's awful on a level that's quite unusual, which is doubly disappointing because the opening titles are so promising. And then of course there's the Hollywood version starring Gary Daniels and Chris Penn.
Welcome to the future.
Director Tony Randall and his co-writer Peter Atkins were the masterminds behind Hellraiser 2. And they appeared to be onto another winner here with the right attitude to giving the fans what they want. But apparently they failed, because this thing's less popular than the rip-offs. It's a 1990s sci-fi martial arts movie with Gary Daniels though, so obviously I enjoy it fine.
What are you trying to do, tickle me to death? Don't turn your back on me!
You're already dead.
Firefight almost feels like it could be from the pre-Road Warrior days when these movies routinely straddled the apocalypse rather than waiting for its effects to percolate. And that means for once we get to see the world-ending nuclear war firsthand.
Stand by for an emergency civil defense announcement. There has been a nuclear attack on the United States. I repeat, there has been a nuclear attack on the United States.
Or rather hear about it on the radio. Firefight doesn't have a first-hand kind of budget, which might be why years' worth of post-apocalypse have been condensed down into a single day. Our main villain begins planning the best way to take over the local forest moments after the bomb drops.
What you think we've lost is nothing compared to what we have if we keep our heads. There isn't any government anymore. Nobody's going to run what's left of the country. We make the right moves. We could take over.
He hasn't even had time to take his tie off before civil war erupts among the other survivors. The mutants appear around lunchtime, and by mid-afternoon an ad hoc maternity clinic's been established to deliver babies conceived that morning.
I can feel it trying to come out. Hang on, Mary, please. Barbara, you've got to get it out any way you can. I can't. Pull. Just pull. Pull. Pull.
100 stones! 3 times! Number 2!
We sank about as low as you can get with Firefight, but we're onto a post-apocalypse peak with Blood of Heroes, or Salute of the Jugger as it is to me, which, like several of the early Italian post-apocalypses, is built around a death sport that's never named, and the rules of which are never explained. But that doesn't stop the movie taking the game very seriously. Everything here revolves around this mass brawl over a bone, and it obsesses everyone, from the peasants and the dog towns on the surface to the aristocrats of the 9 cities beneath.
I don't like brutality, I like heroics. I like the blood of heroes.
The blood of heroes?
This is one of those two-tier haves and have-nots futures, with politics and jealousies at play amid the sport, and it comes across a lot like Rollerball meets Rocky in Mad Max world. So it's no surprise writer-director David Webb Peoples has said both the Italian Stallion and William Harrison's original Rollerball short story were a major influence on the script, which features dialogue that could have improved either movie.
Get out of the Red City. Old bones don't heal like young bones.
I thought we were the same age. You and me.
We used to be.
A huge hit on home video, it's probably best known now for the members of its cast. Rutger Hauer as the punch-drunk has-been out for one last shot at the title. Joan Chen and Vincent D'Onofrio are young hotshots trying to make names for themselves. And Delroy Lindo's there too, I guess. Facilitated by its Australian location, the bad guys all come from the Mad Max franchise. Max Fairchild and Richard Norton as players, and the increasingly ubiquitous Hugh Keys-Byrne as their dastardly benefactor, Lord Vile.
You protected him, you asshole.
Lord Vile, I never hurt a soul for any reason but to put a dog skull on a steak.
But you didn't put any f***ing dog skull on any f***ing steak.
The original wave of Maxploitation began to peter out just as the 80s were becoming the 90s, which was a fabulous time for bad movies, but a difficult time for Roger Corman. Having all but abandoned theatrical releases, Corman was finding the home video market challenging due to competition from upstarts and increasingly genre-minded studios. Profit margins tightened, forcing production up and quality down. And to make matters worse, the talented young filmmakers who once begged to be exploited now saw film festivals like Sundance as the path to Hollywood. And all that might go some way to explaining Ultra Warrior. Something has to.
It is time to listen to the voice inside your soul. It speaks of a planet which was once beautiful and will be again.
Actually, I guess it's up to me to explain. Once upon a time, Roger Corman produced a movie called Welcome to Oblivion, and although it wasn't very good, it was still a movie, and in 1990 enjoyed a limited theatrical release in the US and Peru. Although it failed to interest audiences in either country, Corman felt that with a little sprucing up, it would make a fine VHS release. So he replaced around half the footage with bits of other movies, and retained only the most exciting or informative of the original scenes.
You murdered my beautiful fish! The Lord made that fish. You give Elijah his fish back.
Where did you get that fish?
You want a fish like that? Elijah will get you one where you stand.
And I'm going over the border.
I can't get you no fish like that if you're going over. That's the bishop's country. You get your own damn fish.
So the original movie seems fine, but how seamlessly do they incorporate the stock footage? See if you can spot the moment we cut to one of Corman's other, more effects-driven movies.
I'm at the Overlook Hotel. It's a tourist trap near the border.
Those bastards are charging us whatever they want for the zirconium.
There are reports today of more border skirmishes with the rebel insurgents.
Essentially, every time someone references an unrelated event, we cut to it happening. It's like watching a 90-minute episode of Family Guy directed by Godfrey Ho. 1 minute, Dak Rambo's testing radioactivity on the eastern seaboard. The next, George Peppard's fighting off an alien invasion on the planet Akir. All because footage from Battle Beyond the Stars was available. And you know what that means?
We got
Not only do we get perhaps the most reused shot in movie history, but Ultra Warrior also delivers footage from Corman's fantasy realm, with plenty of the warrior and the sorceress, as well of course as his post-apocalypse movies. There's the motorcycle jousting scene from Dune Warriors, the battle truck from Battle Truck, Everything Indoors comes from Crime Zone, and the subterranean mutants are from Wheels of Fire.
They were on a mission not far from here when my mother was suddenly captured. She was pulled underground by a cannibalistic subspecies known as the Whiteys.
The Blunderdome footage, meanwhile, is from Raiders of the Sun, which came out 2 years after Ultra Warrior's claimed 1990 release, which is actually Welcome to Oblivion's. Not even Roger Corman could recycle movies that hadn't been made yet. Finally, and most absurdly, there's footage, including this cameo, from Lords of the Deep, which, unlike Ultra Warrior, is set underwater.
His corporation's got corporations even he doesn't know about. My father, the boss man, he was the first person to dig for zirconium on the ocean floor.
Even by Corman's standards, this is all very efficient, much like the scenario that led to it being made. In 1986, Corman was on a flight to Argentina when turbulence forced an unscheduled stop in Peru. The producer didn't want to wait at the airport, so he hailed a cab into the capital of Lima, which was then subject to spiraling crime, an economic crisis, and constant threats of terrorism from communist insurgents' shining path.
Nobody goes into oblivion but fools and idiots.
Asking to be taken to a movie studio, Corman was dropped at Inca Films, where he invited himself in for a meeting. And the legend goes that by the time he got back on his plane 3 hours later, he'd inked a deal to produce a dozen movies in the country, contracted its two best-known directors to make them, and set up a company to distribute them in Latin America. Before we congratulate his ingenuity, it's worth pointing out one of the directors he introduced to the world was Anaconda's Luis Loza.
Don't make me out a monster.
Between Welcome to Oblivion and Ultra Warrior came Prison Planet, which is where actors like Michael Foley are sent for crimes against drama.
Where are the girls? Answer me! What's the matter with him?
He's out!
Then bring him back!
As possibly the world's only superfan of genre filmmaker Robert Rundle, I've talked about martial artist Michael Foley before and his capacity as vigilante priest Father Daniel in Rundle's The Divine Enforcer. And as impressive as he was in that film, it still didn't suggest what he was capable of.
How dare you screw up my deal like this? Tell me who this man was, or I'm gonna fry your balls.
It's a performance for the ages and the only reason to trudge through an otherwise pretty diabolical movie.
What's become of my brother? He's gone? Where? He's, dead? What? It wasn't my fault. Shut up!
1989's Rising Storm postulates that the United States of 2099 will be a society riven by alienation and tribal paranoia, the result of electing an egomaniacal huckster as president and then sitting back as he turned everyone against each other and openly rewrote history and reality to suit his own agenda.
You really don't know much about the past, do you? I mean, before the Reformation.
Just what I learned in school, you know. About how the country was run by Negroes and Zionists and how they kind of this whole drug dealing thing, and then they hooked up with the British royal family, and then First Blessed Reverend just came along and kicked them all out.
These final years of proper Maxploitation saw some unusual international offerings, including Australia's Spirits of the Air, Gremlins of the Clouds, the profoundly dry and sunny feature debut of Lord of Darkness and Drizzle, Alex Proyas.
It can't rain all the time.
Mexican auteur Damien Acosta Esparza gave us a pair of punk biker movies pitching a luchador named Tarzan against an army of portly cops with mustaches.
¡Viva la coca! ¡Viva la mota! ¡Viva el alcohol!
Traditional Maxploitation also had a last hurrah with Canada's Empire of Ash, which you know must have been popular because it was re-released as Empire of Ash 2, but that didn't make it any better.
Kill somebody!
There's also an Empire of Ash 3, but all these movies really contribute to Maxploitation, apart from a lot of explosions, is the idea of forced donors known as blood bags.
You f***ing blood bag. When you wake up, all yours is gonna be gone.
And there was even a late-in-the-day throwback to the original Max rather than the Road Warrior, and it might be kind of great, I'm not sure. It appears to be part inspired by Dead End Drive-In, which also fielded fiercely competitive tow truck drivers, and stars Sam Jones as a goody two-shoes who pisses off the local scumbags so badly they try to kill girlfriend Daisy Duke and his little girl.
Now I'll be Daddy and you be Mommy. Would you like a beer? Yes, please.
Becky! Becky!
In a moment of unlikely collective decision-making, Maxploitation stopped dead in 1992. The occasional examples that followed, usually being belated sequels or attempts to relaunch this kind of post-apocalypse beyond the direct shadow of Max. It's always the way. First, a wave of B, C, and Z movie imitations and cash-ins are rushed into production. They create a subgenre, then it begins to diversify before thinning out and getting weird.
You're evil! You're gonna burn in hell!
Eventually, once everything's settled down, one of the studios will break ranks and bowl in with a slick, high-concept update on the theme, often with a twist.
How utterly goddamn heroic.
Anything from Mad Max plus Casablanca to Mad Max plus boats.
Happy now.
Once you begin pulling at threads, it becomes apparent Waterworld has more plot holes than any other movie in this video. For example, it's set 500 years in the future, but everyone rides 1990s jet skis. 1990s jet skis were built to last a summer. They were maintained by sex pests and held together with dried margaritas and sunscreen. They won't be the dominant mode of transport in half a millennium. The melting of the polar ice caps is the worst imaginable catalyst for the end of the world, because it would be predicted and monitored and people would respond to it. Plans would be made, technology would be adapted, the Musks and Bezoses would build floating cities. Some people might even think to note where the high ground is, but Waterworld supposes mankind just jumped into the sea one day. Then there's all the business with the soil.
Pure dirt.
Apparently in this world, a small pot of soil is valuable enough to buy weeks' worth of water, food, equipment, and a hydroponic tomato plant. During the many scenes of Kevin Costner swinging on ropes and operating important-looking pulleys, I pondered the economics of this. Soil is the most valuable commodity because it's how you grow things, but if you have hydroponics, you don't need soil, especially soil that's completely devoid of nutrients, having spent 500 years in salt water. Also, there's enough of it lying around to make everyone millionaires. Am I missing something, or is this movie stupid?
Gills.
Where did you get the charcoal? Where did you get the batteries? Where did you get the invisible floating crude oil refinery? And how can a character who lives in a world without land or railings not know how to swim? This movie's a complete. Despite its reputation, Waterworld actually did okay at the box office, but it cost so much to make it lost money in real terms, as did the same year's other two high-profile, post-apocalyptic damp squibs. You might think that would have put Hollywood off such movies, but people kept making them for the rest of the decade, no matter how badly they tanked.
Sad story. You gotta smoke.
Then, at the turn of the millennium, it's as if the whole industry decided to abandon overblown dross in favour of a more cerebral approach to the post-apocalypse. And this run of films is every bit as good as the last one isn't.
Hey, Kappa. We're only stardust.
Actual Maxploitation remained out of fashion, but there were echoes in the exalted halls of the Hollywood sort of elite. In 2007, Resident Evil was Mad Max for no particular reason, with third installment Extinction, and in 2008, Death Race went to prison with a reboot, featuring cars inspired by The Road Warrior and dialogue inspired by Deadwood.
Okay, cocksucker. Fuck with me, and we'll see who shits on the sidewalk.
I'm playing that again.
Okay, cocksucker. Fuck with me, and we'll see who shits on the sidewalk.
The same year gave us Neil Marshall's Superior Doomsday, about a virus that ravages Scotland so badly its inhabitants are abandoned to their fate, until 25 years later, Rona Mitra is sent in to retrieve a possible cure. There she stumbles into a war between Malcolm McDowell's medieval horsemen and a group of crazies living it up in a 24/7 cannibal punk jamboree. It's pretty wild and clearly influenced by Escape from New York, but you're not going to tell me Mad Max didn't play a part too. I almost didn't watch Bounty Killer because modern low-budget genre movies look like vomit and tend to be less charming, unless Scott Adkins is in them, of course. But I'm glad I gave it a punt because it's really quite good. Henry Sain's 2013 film, which is based on a comic book based on a cartoon, is a conscious effort to fuse The Road Warrior with the 2008 financial crisis, a similar scenario to which is blamed for the apocalypse and drives the premise of killers hunting corporate criminals for their bounties.
Bleeding hell. Oh, another headless wonder. Come on. How am I supposed to ID him without a f***ing head?
There's an inevitable reliance on cursed VFX plugins and some ropey effects in general, but that's about it for budget-related compromise. There are no 10-minute scenes of people talking in an empty room. Every frame serves a purpose and tends to be rich in detail. I don't know if this thing found an audience, but it certainly deserved to.
Oh, and it smells like a fat man's rotting yarbles.
A step below movies like Bounty Killer lies a selection of ultra-low-budget offerings, including one from Len Kabaczynski. But Maxploitation itself remained a niche endeavour until about 2015, when it lurched back into life for one very particular reason. When George Miller announced Fury Road, he jump-started the whole genre. It's just too cheap and easy for exploitation ears to ignore, and the Asylum in particular must have been hoping for a revival for years.
Where the bloody hell have you been?
Road Wars might be a little less awful than you'd expect, and it's a little better than Road Wars 2 Max Fury.
I'll remember that.
Which has an aging Vernon Wells as the villain.
You're probably wondering why I'm chatting on like that.
You kind of are rambling.
I don't imagine Turbo Kid was a reaction to Fury Road. As far as I can tell, it's just a coincidence it came along at the same time, having started life several years earlier as a concept rejected for the ABCs of Death anthology movie. RKSS, the Canadian trio behind it, has frequently described their splendid movie as Mad Max with BMXers, which very much hits the nail on the head. It's a thoughtful, touching film, and Michael Ironside's perfect as a one-eyed gang lord with a machine that turns people into water.
Let the juicing begin.
No!
There were throwbacks aplenty around this time because in addition to Vernon Wells and Michael Ironside being enticed back to the future, Roger Corman dug up Cirio Santiago, dusted him down and installed him behind a camera for one final stab at Maxploitation. The surprisingly obscure Water Wars stars Michael Madsen because Quentin Tarantino said he should work with Santiago, but unfortunately the director passed away 3 days into the shoot. Corman and Jim Wynorski stepped in to complete the movie, but it took several years and obviously copious amounts of recycled footage, some of which was 3 decades old but still looks better than the new stuff.
Those who control the water control the world.
Somehow even worse is China's Mad Shelia, which comprehensively fails to be anything like its artwork alleges, perhaps because it's stolen. Instead of a Chinese Fury Road, it's a half-assed two-part zero-budget carbuncle that can't even spell its own name. I'm not sure about this post-apocalypse in general. Essentials appear in good supply, there are no signs of disease, everyone's clean, and somehow social media's survived. And that really puts a downer on the end of the world.
I think the survivors would envy the dead.
We've looked at enough of these movies to draw some conclusions, and I think one of them is that there's no right way for a mother movie to inspire its offspring.
Life, finds a way.
Blockbusters like Jurassic Park and Star Wars added practical and conceptual tools to the filmmaker's box. The likes of Die Hard and Alien offer a sure thing setup with a framework that's easy to copy, and the eminently imitable critters of Gremlins and E.T. were the catalysts for wretched fads. But few mother movies have established a whole subgenre in the way The Road Warrior did.
Yes.
It's very rare for a property to single-handedly create a lasting, distinct and significant subgenre exactly in its own image. And when it does happen, it's usually within the realms of horror. Halloween and Dawn of the Dead are often credited with inspiring the slasher and zombie subgenres, but even their bloodlines are complicated by other movies. Maxploitation has a pedigree. It's a thoroughbred subgenre.
What a wonderful philosophy you have.
Beyond the compartmentalized world of horror, a movement like, say, Bruceploitation can also be traced back to a single point of origin. But its movies aren't really that different from Hong Kong's generic kung fu cinema. You could easily watch a lot of them without noticing what they are, while adherents of Maxploitation could seldom be anything else. In fact, the overall aesthetic defined by The Road Warrior is so recognizable that you could ask almost anyone what the post-apocalypse looks like, and the chances are they'd describe its world down to a T. And they might even mention homoerotic bondage. Thanks to Mad Max, cultures that aren't even sure what BDSM is still know it's going to be part of their lives after the bombs drop. And for a franchise that grew out of a grotty Aussie genre movie, that's extraordinary. Thanks for watching and see you soon.
There has been too much violence, too much pain. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.